United Women's Ball Hockey Foundation is a for women by women nonprofit organization, and really want the female ball hockey community to be like, we believe you are the UWs. We believe in community, we believe in equity, and we believe in opportunity, and that's where we've been focusing our efforts. Our volunteer staff is listed below. Really privileged to work with all these wonderful people, and we've had a lot of help from Jen and John Hines with our speaker series. So I'm really just excited for all of this. Our goals is to listen and learn, ask questions, and then tonight at the end you'll have an opportunity to ask for future speaker options. So looking forward to hearing your feedback there. So tonight we're here to learn about nutrition. Food is super important. It fuels us, and I can't really wait for this topic. Lorissa is a clinical dietitian with Little Company of Mary Medical Center. She's also a stellar ball hockey player, as a happy endings player who plays often against the Cobras, and a defenseman. I can tell you that Lorissa never stops moving her feet on the floor, and that's really annoying as a defenseman of an opposing team. She's been playing hockey for over 20 years, started in ball hockey, and then joined and plays now both ice and ball hockey. So she's just a wonderful person, a wealth of knowledge, and a really fierce competitor. So I'm excited to turn it over to Lorissa. And Lorissa, it's all yours.
Great, thank you so much. What an awesome picture of me that was. I was very surprised. Okay, so let me share my screen. Okay, so today we're going to be talking, as you guys all know, about sports nutrition. So just a little bit about me. So I am, again, like Karen said, a registered dietitian. I'm a big cat lady. I have 2 cats myself. And fun fact, I am vegan. That doesn't mean that I don't enjoy food. I love all types of food, especially the vegan goodies like the sweets, all that kind of stuff. My passion with nutrition is really intuitive eating and weight neutral nutrition. So you'll see some of that kind of sprinkled throughout. But right now I do currently work as a clinical dietitian in a hospital. So today's objectives, I'll kind of pass through these real quick so we can get on to everything. I first kind of wanted to start by talking about what is health and what does being healthy mean to you. So if anybody wants to share, whether in the chat box or if they want to unmute themselves, just to kind of get an overview, like what does healthy mean? I lost my chat box, so.
We have feeling good as one answer in the chat box.
Okay, so feeling good, yeah, definitely. When you feel healthy, you want to feel good. So as you can see on the picture, being healthy might mean something different for everybody, whether that means feeling good, whether that means eating well, working out, having good relationships, mental health, that kind of thing as well. And really quick, I wanted to go into the determinants of health. So there's a lot of things that kind of go into what affects our health, things like biology and our genetics, social factors. So whether we have adequate housing, whether we face discrimination, whether that's based on the color of our skin, our body size, those kinds of things. And then of course, individual behavior as well. So diet, physical activity, sleep, those do affect our health, as we all know. And research has found that only 40% of our health is affected by that, whereas genetics falls in under that, and then social factors being a big part of it too. So really just knowing that diet isn't the be all end all of our health. While it is an important piece, we want to take a holistic approach to everything. And same thing goes with athletic performance. There's a lot of key pieces in there that are going to affect our performance. And again, I don't want to be like, oh, nutrition doesn't matter. It totally does. But again, it's only one piece of the puzzle. So we'll start going into energy. So energy, when I say energy, I'm talking about calories. And I like to use the word energy instead of calories because I think calories is kind of a negative term, especially in the United States. We kind of think of it as bad, or we should eat low calorie or whatnot. And fun fact, in Europe, they do use energy like on the food label instead of calories. But really our energy needs are going to vary day to day. There's a lot of different things that go into what affects our energy needs. So things like our age, our gender, our activity level, the climate we live in, and of course, like what we eat earlier in the day or the day before, how hydrated we are is all gonna affect our energy needs. And the thing about trying to come up with an equation, it's just an estimate. So even in the hospital, when we're kind of finding energy needs for things like people on tube feedings, we always do a range and we always do an estimate, and we're always adjusting those. So just kind of know that if you do use something, so something like MyFitnessPal, I don't know if however many of you have ever tried that, but I've heard from a lot of people, they'll go on there and find, they'll put in their information, they're on 1,200 calorie diets. And I'm just like, yeah, that's not going to sustain you, especially for somebody who's an athlete, who's working out and playing a sport like hockey. You need way more than that. So that's just a brief on energy. And just some ways to know if you're not eating enough. These are some different things that you might experience. There's a disorder called RED-S, which stands for Relative Energy Deficiency in Sport. And what it is, you have to either be in a low energy state, so not eating enough, amenorrhea, so that means lack of menstrual cycle for females, and then what was the last one? Low bone mineral density. So whether you have any one of those things can lead to RED-S, and you can see like it can lead to decreased performance, decreased muscle strength, depression, decreased mood, low energy levels, those kind of things. So that's why it's really important to just eat and eat enough. And then we'll go into our macronutrients. So carb, protein, fat, and we will touch a little bit on alcohol. If you were at Nikki's talk a month ago, I know some people were asking about alcohol, so we'll go into that a little bit too. But first I wanted to start on carbohydrates. So carbs are really our body's preferred source of fuel for our muscles, and really importantly, our brain too. Another function of carbs is that it spares protein. And what that means is if we don't eat enough carbohydrates, our body can start to break down protein and use that for energy. And that means that protein's not going for other functions like muscle repair, muscle growth, that kind of thing. Carbohydrates can also help balance our mood. So if we're eating regularly throughout the day and incorporating carbohydrates, that can regulate our blood sugar, which again can lead to balanced mood. When we eat carbohydrates, then they get stored in our muscles and our liver, and it's called glycogen. And that's important, and I'll bring that up throughout the day because so after we don't eat for a period of time, we need that sustained glucose to keep our cells going. That glycogen stores is really what is gonna give us that glucose to keep us going. And especially during hockey, which is both an anaerobic and aerobic sport. So during anaerobic times where it's that high intensity where you're sprinting for the ball, your body's really gonna depend solely on those glycogen stores to provide you energy. Whereas during the aerobic time, where you're just kind of jogging back and forth or something like that, you're gonna, I think it's about like 50% is your energy needs are gonna be from those glycogen stores. So overall, you really do need those carbohydrates and that stored glycogen as well. Then we have our simple versus complex carbohydrates. So you guys might be familiar with this. So our simple carbs are going to be like your table sugar, your sweets, fruit, milk, juice. Where complex carbs are going to be like your whole grains, your beans, your vegetables, your starchy vegetables like potatoes, that kind of thing. The difference between those, so simple sugars are going to be like your single sugars, so like glucose, fructose, galactose. Whereas your complex carbs are going to be multiple links of those single sugars put together. And the complex carbs, the difference in that is that they're going to be slowly or digested more slowly. They'll also have something in them typically called fiber, which we'll go into in a second as well. But I really think a lot of times simple sugars get a bad rep, but really you can incorporate both. There's a time and place for both simple and complex carbohydrates in your diet. So fiber is actually a type of carb. The only thing that's different is that it doesn't break down into sugar like other kinds of carbohydrates. There's two different types of fiber. There's soluble and insoluble. So soluble dissolves in water, and it's going to help decrease your blood sugar and then also decrease your cholesterol. Whereas insoluble fiber does not dissolve in water, and that's the one that's more responsible for keeping you regular. So for going to the bathroom more frequently, and because speeds up the passage of food into your intestines. And these are going to be found in like your complex carbohydrates, your fruits, your vegetables, things like that. And you want to include these kind of foods at most of your meals and snacks. And kind of later, we'll go into like pre and post workout nutrition and when you might not want to include a lot of fiber. So your carbohydrate needs, so this is just, you guys will get the slides afterwards, so you can kind of, I'll go quick through this, but just to give an example of how you would calculate this out, say it's a 150-pound woman who exercises for about an hour a day and falls in the moderate category. The first thing you're gonna wanna do is find your weight in kilograms. So you would just take your weight in pounds, divide it by 2.2, and you would get your weight in kilograms. And then times that by the amount of carbs, and you would get, so for example, 5 to 7 carbs, you will get 340 to 476 grams of carbs per day. And I gave you exactly what, doesn't mean you have to count your carbs, anything like that, but for example, 15 grams of carb is like 1 slice of bread, a piece of fruit, 1 tablespoon of sugar. And I gave an example of a day, what this would look like around, it's around 350 carbs, I wanna say, that I calculated it to. So you can see you're incorporating carbohydrate foods into every meal and snack to keep your energy going. And it might seem like a lot for people too. I know, especially now, like keto is a big thing, to where carbohydrate, a lot of people are following more low carbohydrates, but especially with hockey, I just wanted to point out this research statistic. So in this research study, it was done on ice hockey players. Unfortunately, there's not really any research I could find on ball hockey. But the players that ate a higher carbohydrate diet, so those who ate 60% of their energy needs from carbs, skated 30% farther and then faster as well than the players who ate a lower carbohydrate diet, so those who ate 40% of their energy intake from carbs. So it just goes to show, you know, you need carbs to keep that energy level up. And a lot of these differences were showed in like the third period of the game. So really when your glycogen stores start to become depleted, that's when the difference showed between the two groups. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll keep going. So protein. So protein, as we all know, is important for muscle repair. Also different things like hormone and enzyme creation, fluid balance, organ and tissue maintenance, that kind of thing. Our protein sources, a lot of people know, it's going to be your meat, fish, dairy, vegetarian sources, nuts, seeds, beans, tofu, tempeh, that kind of thing. You really want to work on spreading your intake of protein throughout the day, which we'll talk about a little bit later. So post-workout, a lot of people think they have to shove in 50 grams of protein immediately after a workout, whereas while some protein after a workout is beneficial, research shows that the most important thing is having adequate protein throughout that 24-hour period. And protein powder, I just kind of wanted to include this little tidbit. So yay or nay, so I'm not really going to say yay or nay. I'm going to say I'm kind of in between and say it depends. So protein powder, it really depends on the situation. If you find it's convenient for you, if you find like, you know, it's easier to drink something versus eat something after or before a workout that you just need a little bit of energy, but you're not really ready for a full meal. It also depends on cost. Can you afford it? Is it something that's really beneficial for you? So that's kind of where I stand on that. And if you have more questions about it, we can answer that too. Your daily needs of protein, so it's going to be 1.2 to 2 grams per kilograms body weight. So again, I gave a little bit of an example based off that 150-pound woman. Then I gave some examples like what is like 1 ounce of meat or 1 ounce of cheese. That's going to be all these things that are going to be about 7 grams of protein. And I just showed like what exactly in breakfast, lunch, and dinner, where you would get this protein from. And it doesn't mean these would be the full meals. Of course, you'd want to include some vegetables or some carbs or those kind of things. This is just showing where the protein comes in from there. Any questions so far? Okay, I'll keep going. Again, you guys can always type in something if you think of anything too throughout, because I don't want you to forget questions. So fat is our major energy source at lower to moderate exercise. It also helps insulate our organs. It's important for certain absorption of vitamins, so like vitamin A, vitamin D, your fat-soluble vitamins. It also can impact brain function and mood, help with joint recovery, and regulate your hormones as well too. Your daily needs are going to be 20 to 35% of your daily energy needs. So say for someone who's on eating 2,000 calories, it's going to be about 45 to 80, give or take a few grams per day. So really what that translates to is you just kind of want to include healthy fat sources with every kind of meal, even snacks too. So there's various different types of fats. So we have our trans, saturated, unsaturated. Trans and saturated are the ones you often hear as bad. I don't always like to use the word good, bad, but trans are going to be the ones you want to limit the most. And those are going to be ones that are made from, what it is, it's made from a vegetable oil. And what it is, it's a liquid oil that gets turned into a solid by adding hydrogen to it. So there's a little fun chemistry lesson for you. But those are going to be found in like a lot of the processed foods. So like your cakes, your cookies, your pastries, microwave popcorn, things like that. Or margarine, that's another good source too, of trans fats. And those are going to be, again, the ones you want to limit as much as possible. Then we move on to our saturated fats. So saturated fats are going to be solid at room temperature, and we want to try to keep our intake of those fairly low. You can still have some, but try to want to avoid those too a little bit. So those are going to be like your animal fat. So if you have like some gristle on a steak, or if you have even like coconut oils and butter, so things that are solid at room temperature. But what I really wanted to focus on was our unsaturated fats. So those are going to be things that are liquid at room temperature. We have mono and polyunsaturated, and then under the polyunsaturated, we have our omega-3s and our omega-6s. Those ones are going to be essential for our body, so it means we don't make them, so we have to get them from food. And I'll go into omega-3s in the next slide a little bit and how they can impact performance. But omega-3s, omega-6s, typically a lot of them times they're found in the same food. So things like, your vegetable oils, avocado, fatty fish, nuts, seeds, those kinds of things. So a little bit about omega-3s and performance. You can see the proposed benefits on the screen. There are 3 different types of omega-3. So there's ALA, EPA, and DHA. The ALA is going to be found in plant foods, whereas the EPA and DHA is going to be primarily found in fatty fish. And fun fact, the fish is actually it's not just in the fish. The fish only get it because they eat plankton who eat algae. So really, if you're like a vegetarian, you don't eat fish, or you're vegan like me, don't eat fish, you could always take an algae supplement. And I know it sounds kind of gross, but to get those EPAs and DHAs in as well. Or you could just stick to the ALA sources. The only thing with that is when you eat the ALA in your body, it has to get converted to EPA and DHA in order to be used, and that process is sometimes kind of difficult. So you do typically need more ALA to get converted into that EPA and DHA, but doesn't mean it's a bad thing. You still want to include those sources in your diet as well. Alcohol, everybody's favorite topic. So I see some people cheering. Yeah, cheers. No, this is water, but alcohol is actually the 4th macronutrient. It's a little bit different than food. Of course, it's not essential to our body like the other macronutrients. So when we drink alcohol, typically the alcohol gets absorbed into our bloodstream from our stomach or intestines, and it stays in our bloodstream or it stays in our body until it gets processed by our liver. And most of it gets processed in the liver, and some does get excreted through your urine, your sweat, your breath, that kind of thing. And the absorption of alcohol can depend on a few different things. So of course, whether we have a full stomach, whether we're eating while we're drinking, if you ever drink on an empty stomach, you get drunk a lot quicker, or whether you have a carbonated drink. So same thing, like White Claws are a big thing now, or the seltzer drinks. You can have a couple of those and you're like, whoa, what happened? So the alcohol or the carbonation actually speeds up the absorption. And then of course, just the percentage of alcohol can affect the absorption rate as well. So alcohol and performance. As we kind of guessed, there can be some detrimental benefits when it comes to performance. So it can impair our motor skills. It's been shown to decrease strength, power, and sprint performance up to 72 hours, so 3 days. It can also lead to dehydration, disrupt your sleep, which can also impair recovery, those kind of things as well too. So when it comes to alcohol, we really just want to focus on moderation. So moderation is key, which is the recommended amount is 1 to 2 drinks per day for men, 1 drink per day for women, and I have what 1 drink typically equals. Fun fact, I came across this study. I believe it was done or it came out this year. But basically it was done on men and women who followed a HIIT routine, so a high intensity interval training. They did HIIT for 2 times a week. And they had moderate drinks of beer, so 1 drink a day for women, 1 to 2 drinks a day for men. And it actually showed it did not affect their cardiorespiratory fitness or their strength performance. So that's not to go out and say like you can go free willy with alcohol and it won't affect your performance, but just know maybe there might be some moderate alcohol might be okay. But of course, this is just one study and more studies do need to be done. Then we'll go into hydration. So our hydration needs, the basic rule of thumb is 1 milliliter per calorie expended. And that's where that 8 cups rule comes from, because like if you look on the food labels, like you see the percentages, that's all based off 2,000 calories. So that's where that 8 cups come from, but really based off of a lot of things, our activity level, our age, our gender, that kind of thing, we may need more or less water. The one easy way to kind of monitor your hydration status is to monitor your urine. So you want to aim for that pale yellow color. And just a side note, as I was going through this with somebody, they did say to me, well, what about vitamins? So yes, if you take any kind of water soluble vitamin, so like a B vitamin, vitamin C, that kind of thing, if you take a high amount, you will excrete the rest through your urine. So you might see like that neon color, but typically the hydration status is you want to aim for that pale yellow color. And I just gave you some signs of dehydration that you want to kind of pay attention to. An important thing with dehydration and performance too, so if you are like 2%, if there's a 2% decrease in your body weight due to dehydration, that has been shown to compromise your cognitive function, and then also your exercise performance as well too. And that is even worse, especially when we're in hot weather. So if we're ever out running on a hot day or at a tournament outside, something like that. And then our hydration, just before, during, and after exercise, I'll kind of just skip through this so you can just have this slide for your reference. And then talking about a little bit pre-workout, during workout, and post-workout. So before workout, of course, if you're like eating like 3 hours before a meal, or before a workout, I'm sorry, you want to have a more substantial meal. But typically 30 to 60 minutes before a workout, you want to focus on easily digestible carbs. So these are where those simple carbohydrates can really come in handy. And you can also include some protein in that as well too, but you really want your snack or whatnot to be low fat, low fiber. And that's just because the fat and the fiber is harder to digest or takes longer to digest. So that's gonna cause you a lot of GI upset. So whether you're gonna have cramps, you're gonna have to be running to the bathroom, or nausea, those kind of things. Fluid, of course, based on the last slide, you're going to want to include, and even including some sodium or salt in your food and fluid beforehand can help with fluid retention, so to keep you more hydrated. So fun fact, in the body, sodium and water are kind of like buddies. They hang out together. So examples of that would be like a sports drink, fruit, granola bar, pretzels. During exercise, I'll kind of go through this quick, but I just wanted to point out, so during the 2 middle bullet points are going to be where we are during like hockey times. So like that high intensity exercise, 45 to 75 minutes, we're going to actually want to start including small amounts of carbohydrate. And that says including mouth rinse. So mouth rinse, which is interesting, basically, you want to take a carbohydrate solution, so something like a sports drink, like a Gatorade, Powerade. You're going to want to swish a little bit of it in your mouth and spit it out. So you might actually see some of the NHL players do this, like if they show someone on the bench, and that actually, they don't really know the mechanism behind it, but that's been shown to be helpful, especially in high intensity exercise situations. And of course, during endurance exercise and those start and stop sports like hockey, you're going to want to start including those 30 to 60 grams of carbs per hour if you're working out for longer than an hour. So this is really important, especially during tournament times, when people are playing on multiple teams and having 2-3 games back to back. And then post-exercise, you want to eat typically within 2 hours, ideally between 30 to 90 minutes. Again, focus on carb and quality protein. I will give you some examples here, but of course, if you're going to eat a meal after this, of course, go bigger portion sizes. And I just wanted to point out here too, so again, talking about that protein, you don't need to fit in all your protein in a day after your workout. You want to spread it evenly throughout the day. Just a quick note on training days, hard training days are in season versus off season. And on season, you're going to want to have higher energy intake and a higher carb intake. So you'll see half your plate should be your whole grains or other energy enhancing foods. Quarter of your plate should be your fruits and vegetables, and a quarter of your plate should be your lean proteins. And then making sure that adequate fluids for hydration. Whereas you can see the little bit of shift in the plate. So on the off season or light training days, your whole grains is going to be decreased to like a quarter of the plate. So a little bit lower energy and a little bit lower carb intake, and then half your plate fruits and vegetables and a quarter of your plate proteins. And then this is a little bit of intuitive eating, but I just wanted to bring it up. So there's a few different types of hunger that not a lot of people really know about. So of course we have your physical hunger, which is going to be like if you feel hungry, like whether you're starting to get a little bit distracted, you're getting a headache, you feel your stomach grumbling. It's different for everybody. Your taste hunger is going to be where you just heard of something, you see something and you're like, wow, that sounds so super good right now. Emotional hunger is going to be where you have some kind of unmet emotional need that you feel like needs to be met with food. So that could be like having a bad day at work, coming home and being like, man, a piece of chocolate really sounds good right now. And then the one I really want to focus on is practical hunger. So that's going to be where you might not feel like eating, but you know it's going to be beneficial for your body. So for athletes especially, that's going to be like fueling for a workout, whether that's before a workout, you wake up in the morning, you're like, I'm not really hungry, but I know I don't do good on an empty stomach. So having something small there. Could also be during exercise when you know you're obviously not really feeling hungry in the middle of a game, but knowing that carbohydrate really helps sustain your energy levels during, or it could be afterwards where you're also still not feeling so hungry, but know you need that protein and that carbohydrate to really help with the recovery and repair those muscles. And how to translate this to real life. So I know I kind of like spat a lot of information at you over a short amount of time, but just some key pointers. So you want to try to eat regularly. So 3 meals with 1 to 4 snacks is needed based off of your needs. You want to try to make half your grains or your carbohydrates be whole grains. So that's going to be like choosing like the brown rice, the whole wheat bread, the whole wheat pasta, that kind of thing. So half of the time. So you don't need to always, if you don't like a whole wheat pasta, well then, okay, don't eat it. Stick to the regular refined pasta. That's totally fine. You want to aim for 5 servings of fruit and veggies a day. You again want to spread your protein throughout the day and try to choose quality sources. Emphasize those omega-3 fatty acids. So that could be, again, remember from like the plant sources, whether that's walnuts, flaxseed, chia seeds, or the fish sources, the meat sources. So it's going to be like your fatty fish, so salmon, trout, tuna. And actually the American Heart Association does recommend, if you eat fish, that you eat fish, fatty fish 2 times per week. And then incorporating fun foods regularly. So you don't want to deprive yourself of those, like whatever fun foods that means for you, if that's like a dessert or a beer or something like that. And you want to pay attention to all types of hunger, make sure you're staying hydrated. And I just wanted to include this last bullet point. So nutrition can be as complicated as you make it. If you focus on the basics here, fueling yourself enough, making your diet varied, balanced, and also flexible is important. I always try to push that, you know, One reason I don't really recommend like something like keto is a lot of times it's not sustainable for other people. If it works for you, great. But a lot of people that's not sustainable, and you want to be able to be flexible because you might be out at a birthday celebration and they only have a couple foods to eat and you're starving, or you want to enjoy a piece of cake with your friends and family, and know that's okay too. So this is just some more information for you guys. There is a course that you can purchase, and I just put some great nutrition professionals that you can follow on Instagram. I'm a big Instagram person. And if you ever wanted individual counseling, you can always seek out a registered dietitian or some type of nutrition professional that is qualified to give nutrition advice. And that's my spiel. Karen, how did I do on time?
This is great. Thanks. Yeah, we have a few minutes for questions. Larissa, if you'll take down the share screen so we can see
yes.
Everyone's faces, and then yeah, we can open it up for questions. Feel free to just unmute yourself and ask, or throw something in the chat.
How do I don't know how to, oh, I found it.
Nice job, Lolo.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I have a
Yeah,
question.
that's awesome.
I think we've all heard the phrase, you shouldn't drink your calories. How do you feel about that? And is that inclusive of, or is that just a critical statement, like, i.e. Holly, stop drinking so much bourbon? Or or are like some protein shakes and what have you, would you recommend that those fit into your health equation?
Yeah. So I think, as some of you may know, I'm very, I'm not a restrictive type of person at all. So I think there's always room for liquid calories, or like if you want to have a pop at a social with some pizza or tacos, as people like to, that's totally fine. When it comes to alcohol, again, trying to stick to the moderation. Of course, there's going to be some times where you're out and you're going to have more than one drink for us women, like, come on. But trying to kind of pay attention to what your goals are. I think it's going to be dependent on every kind of person. Again, how it makes you feel. In regards to like the liquid nutrition with the protein drinks, like I kind of said, if that fits into your routine and you find that's easy for you and it sustains you and it keeps you full, that's totally fine. That can totally work. But if you're just buying it just because everybody at the gym is like, yeah, you have to have the shaker bottle, bro, and keep that in, but you don't need it. You don't need it. But if it works for you, it works for you. And I think that's totally fine. Does that kind of answer your question? Okay.
Hey, Lo.
Hey.
I wanted to go over if you have any thoughts on supplementation, and if so, is there a specific brand that you find to be not so shitty?
So supplementation, are you talking about like protein? Are you talking about like just other like BCA, like branched chain amino acids, or creatine, or anything like that?
I'm thinking more so like capsulated versions.
Okay.
So I hate fish, so I take all fish oil.
Okay.
Oils. I have a brand that I found that doesn't taste so terrible.
Yeah.
But I have found that like it's really hard to find like a good quality brand of supplement that, one, doesn't taste bad, two, doesn't give you like indigestion, and three is like also, I mean, I don't like taking things that have all sorts of additives in them too. So if you have any recommendations for companies that are a little bit more trustworthy with what they're actually putting in their supplements, that would be awesome.
Yeah, so you're speaking more for like fish oils you're talking about a little bit. Yeah, those are hard because those are like huge pills too. And they, a lot of times, I'll have to ask one of my coworkers. I know she takes one and it's, she's like, you can't taste it. You're not burping up fish afterwards. But really, so Nature Made, I think, is Walgreens brand, I want to say. I know that's a really good one just for general supplements, and supplements are hard because they're not regulated.
Right.
So that's why like a lot of times you don't necessarily, we try to push the food first, but of course there are times where you might want to take a supplement. So Nature Made is a good one too. I would recommend. Someone said Nordic Naturals. Yeah. Anything else? Anybody's got questions on?
I have just kind of like a topic of conversation. So I know I'm really into the intuitive eating too. And I think what I've found, at least especially in quarantine time, of, you know, I still crave that mac and cheese or those Doritos or things like that. And I think it's important that if your body wants it, you obviously want it for some reason, whether it be emotional, physical, whatever, but having your portion set out beforehand, like for example, instead of bringing the whole bag of Doritos to the couch with you, literally just put a handful in a bowl and snack on that. So you still get the craving satisfied, but it stops you from mindless eating. And I think that's very important.
Blasphemy, Jamie.
I mean, don't get me wrong. If you got to eat that whole bag of Doritos to feel good, you do it.
I feel real good about myself.
Yeah, I think that's really a great point too, because especially if you're feeling kind of like crappy or emotional, or for whatever reason you're feeling sad, mad, depressed, angry, whatnot, kind of asking yourself if you're really going towards that food, just taking a moment and be like, what else do I need in this moment besides food? And if you can't get that met and you still want to go for the food, that's totally fine too. And I think that's a great idea to try to, you know, portion out, give yourself a little bit of that, so you're not going into like this mindless, endless, where you're just constantly reaching back in, and then you just feel gross afterwards, or you feel guilty afterwards, because we don't want that either.
Hey, I don't have a, oh, sorry.
Oh, no, go, Meg. You go first. I'll go after
I
you.
didn't want to say, I didn't have a question, but I just want to say it was really informative. I'm also a dietitian. I learned something new. So I really like supporting other dietitians too.
Oh, hi. We should
Oh
connect.
my God, Meg, I didn't know that. That's awesome.
Yeah, so I'm in the school nutrition world, so completely different, but totally respect what you're doing, and I love it. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for coming. Awesome. Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
Okay, should so I was just kind of wondering, you talked about like I feel like sometimes I'm either thinking like back when we're kind of in like a tournament weekend, or you know, sometimes there's like a weeknight game and it's at like 9 o'clock or some awkward, you know, late time like that, and I feel like sometimes I'll do like I'm almost having like big snacks throughout the day, because it's like, oh, I don't have time to eat a full meal and then be able to run. And I'm just like wondering if you could suggest some meals that you would eat, you know, with like shorter time before these things that you could like digest fairly quickly and feel like you could play a game and not feel like weighed down. Like I had spaghetti once, I remember, for like just a weeknight game, and I was like, oh, I'm never gonna do that again. Like spaghetti and meatballs, and it was like, yeah, I'm never doing that again. I feel terrible. So
Can I add a part 2 to that question?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Hines here tends not to eat after noon if he has a game at like 7, 8, or 9 p.m. All right, we'll just leave it at that. That's part 2. Go.
So for part 1, I'm totally guilty of that myself. So Danielle, I'll shout out to you here. How many times have we had Chipotle, a whole burrito bowl before a game? We're like, wow, that was the worst decision of my life. So we're all a little guilty of that too. But yeah, some quick things that can be helpful. So you want to think like those simple carbs. So you don't want to be choosing like whole wheat bread or like whole grain pasta, or something. Even like pasta might be a little too heavy, like you said too. But choosing things like even like half a turkey sandwich, half a bagel with a little bit of peanut butter spread on it, like a cheese stick and some cheese and some crackers, a banana, and if you want to include a little bit of protein, a little bit of peanut butter on it. Something really quick, easy like that, if that's helpful. And I think having like, based on your time, I think it's okay too to have those small snacks throughout the day as well too, as long as you're making sure you're getting enough of what you need. If it fits your schedule, that's okay too. But yeah, really focusing on those carbohydrates. So even if it's something like if you wanted to do like a protein drink, like if you wanted to have like half a protein drink with a piece of fruit, just to kind of, because a lot of the protein drinks are lower carb, so you want to just make sure you're getting those carbs in for that energy too. Is that helpful?
Yeah, no, that's helpful, because I think sometimes like it's just, I don't know, you're just like eating like a bar, and it's so unsatisfying. You kind of feel terrible by the end of the day, or a weeknight. But that's good to think about.
Yeah, and including like multiple food groups too. So you might, if you're getting to like where it's like you're having a 9 o'clock game and you're like starving at 7 o'clock, maybe trying to eat a little bit earlier in the day to try to make sure that you're not starving by that 7 o'clock, because you don't want to eat a whole big meal before you play. But if you're so hungry, which is where I've gotten myself into trouble too, if you're so hungry that you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna eat everything in sight, well, that's what's probably gonna happen, you know. So trying to eat a little bit more in the beginning of the day. And then part 2 with John, I don't know where he went.
Oh my God, he left for his...
Saw that, right? You saw that. Oh, I gotta go take the dog out.
But
don't worry, I'll record this.
Yeah, no, I know some people who are like that too. I would try to just say, you know, a lot of people don't feel like they can handle anything on their stomach at all. Maybe trying some kind of liquid nutrition or a sports drink or something, just to give them something, because 8 hours before your last meal and a game is a long time. Like, I barely go 2 to 3 hours without eating, like, at least a snack. So having something that might be easier on the stomach, something light but still gives you some energy, might be helpful too.
And to go off of that, quick question, talking about having like a good meal after a game. What about the whole theory of like you can't eat after 7 or 8 p.m. and you have a game at 8 p.m. and now you're hungry because you just did this great game and you ran great.
Yeah. And sometimes you're starving and you're
supposed to have that big meal still.
You sometimes want to eat like a whole burger because you're starving, but it's like 10 p.m. It's
Exactly.
So I'm a very big fan of, if you're hungry, you should eat. There might be some research like going on with like the intermittent fasting, that kind of thing. So fasting overnight. A lot of those studies are done on like rats or mice. So it needs to be done on it. But really it comes down to personal preference. I think if you're hungry, you should totally eat something. That's your body telling you need that energy. So, and a lot of times your body's, of course, you're going to go to sleep probably after that, but that's okay. Your body doesn't always know. It knows that it needs something to eat. So if you need to have a big meal after that because you're starving, you know, you want to do that, I think, as well.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
John?
I have a real quick question. I really thought it was interesting when you mentioned the mouthwash thing, because and I'll be interested to hear like where you kind of like saw some of that, because I've seen professional athletes do that, but I also do that when I'm like hiking before a big climb or something. And so it sort of just rejuvenates my mental, like my brain, I guess, a little bit, and it like sort of gets away the hunger pain. So it's really interesting that you mentioned that. Like, I haven't heard many people talk about that, and I think that's a really cool point that you made.
Yeah, cool. Thanks. I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was actually something I found out new when I was kind of researching for this. There's a dietitian who's like very well known in the sports nutrition world called Nancy Clark. She's the one I kind of heard that about from, and then I was doing more research, and of course Gatorade funds a lot of studies on it too. And they, like I said, they don't really know the mechanism behind why, but it has been shown, and as you can see, like you said, it has been shown to work for you too. And even after I saw that, I'm like watching the NHL playoffs, and I'm like, oh my God, people are actually doing that. So yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Thank you, Lorissa. I have a few closing pieces, and then Lorissa, if you have a few minutes to stay on with any additional questions, feel free to, for those of you who didn't get your questions in, to hang on for just a moment, and we can get those answered. Sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. Awesome. So just want to tell you of some upcoming opportunities. We normally have our UW's Oktoberfest, but we are still unable to travel and gather in large groups. So instead of our Oktoberfest, where we'll be playing hockey, we have a Trivia Fest coming up, led by Lindsay Maychik, aka Lindsay Bittler, Director of Operations at District Trivia. That's gonna be on Tuesday, October 20th. We have not set a time for it, but you can enter as a small team or as an individual for that event. And if you win in the top 3 for Trivia Fest, you'll be receiving UWBHF gift cards that can be used as entry into a future tournament or as like money towards some UWBHF swag. There's some hats in the video, there's some sweatshirts I see from people wearing some swag for that. So look out for more details to come for Lindsay Bittler and Trivia Fest. It should be a really good time, and I'm looking forward to it. We're going to continue our speaker series in November, so part of the post-session survey is going to be to ask you what other topics you're interested in, so please do share that. And then Jen, John, and I are also working on some team and personal challenge opportunities coming in 2021, so look out for those. The idea would be to get together and laugh together and maybe play some games, get that competitive spirit out, since we're not able to do that as much on a rink. This survey I'm going to put in the chat in just a moment. It should take you like 2 minutes or so. I would really appreciate your feedback so we can improve going forward. And I'm working on putting it in the chat. 1 second. All right, there it is. So again, Lorissa and I can stay on for a few extra minutes if you have some additional questions. If not, please fill out that survey, and we really appreciate your time. We appreciate you being here, and a huge thank you to Lorissa and to Jen and John for putting this awesome event on.
Everybody stay healthy.
Thank you, Lorissa, for sharing your expertise.
Thanks guys for listening. And thanks for having me speak, Karen and San and Jen and John and Jay. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Hey, Lorissa, I do have a question. I just didn't know, what are your thoughts on like caffeine? So like, I know that I have like, you know, like I used to have Red Bull like 100 years ago, and I haven't had that in a long time, but like, there's those like little goo packets or things like that before a game, especially like tournaments and stuff like that. I feel like it's really beneficial, but at the same time, I'm like, should I really have that much caffeine? You know, like that spike, knowing that we have a tournament and there might be, you know, 3 to 5 games throughout the day. Is there a better way to do it? Is the caffeine good to have? Like, just wanted to get your thoughts on that kind of thing.
Oh, am I back? Yeah. So that's a great question too. Yeah. So caffeine, it has been shown to be beneficial for exercise. Just to give you, but you're totally right. Like you might have that crash a little bit later in the day. I would have to look. I don't know the recommendations for like the amount of caffeine offhand, but I can totally send out that information afterwards. But I think it's totally fine. The only thing with caffeine is that it can be a diuretic as well too. So it can lead to dehydration too. So kind of just paying attention to that. So some caffeine, it can be helpful as well too, especially like you said, those goo packs, those are going to have like the carbohydrates in it too, and a little bit of caffeine, so that's totally fine. But sorry, I don't have a better answer, but I can send out some more recommendations and information on caffeine.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Thank you so much.
Yeah. I love all the cats that are showing up too. I wish I had mine here with me. I'm like, dang.
Always gotta have the fur babies ready on hand.
Yeah, right? Oh, they're so cute.
Lorissa, I had a question. Actually, Bridget, go ahead.
I did have a question, a serious question. So like when you're trying to eat when working out, do you adjust it compared to like running compared to like lifting? Because I do both, and I just eat whatever. So I probably should focus on that more. But like adjusting it to whatever you're doing for the day.
Yeah, great question. That was you're not talking about during exercise, you're talking about just in general, right?
Yeah, just in general.
Yeah, so
oh, go ahead. Probably not included.
No, cookies are always included. So yeah, so I mean, you're still, so a lot of times people think you know, you don't need as much protein or you don't need as much carbs with just general running, but you really do still need a lot more protein. You might want to eat a little bit, depending on like the intensity of your workout, you might want to eat a little bit more carbohydrates that day, or you might just find you're more hungrier after a harder workout. That might be possible too. But really, I mean, I would say your workouts aren't going to vary that much, and even on rest days you still want to eat enough to give you that energy and nutrients you need for recovery too. So it's really going to depend on you and just what you're in the mood for, but really every day should be kind of similar. There's not going to be a whole lot of fluctuations unless you're training for like a big event where you're going to go run a marathon or something like that. Like there's like carb loading is a thing too, which I know I didn't go into here, but there's something like that. But just for your general day-to-day workouts, you're really not going to have much fluctuation. Just going to be based off of like, if you're having a harder workout, you might want to eat a little bit more beforehand to prepare for that. Or even the next day after workout, you might find you're more hungry, and that's going to be okay too.
Larissa, I was curious with like not necessarily just like a protein shake from the powder, but like what about with like a smoothie, like a banana, peanut butter, yogurt, like type smoothie? Like how does that fit into the to even Holly's comment of like you shouldn't drink your calories?
Yeah, great question. So I think smoothies are great. It just depends. Again, it goes back to your preference. So I know everything in nutrition, everybody wants a black and white answer, but it's really very a gray feel, which was hard for me as well. But it really just depends on your preference. So smoothies are great too. If you're using them as like a meal replacement, I do just recommend that you include multiple different food groups. So like you said, like having like a banana, so there's your carbs, having like some peanut butter, there's your fat, adding like some milk in there or soy milk if you're looking for more protein, just so you're getting more density to it. Because if you're just having like a fruit smoothie with some juice or fruit smoothie with some fruit and some water, that's not going to be a lot to really hold you over. You're going to find you're going to be hungry probably like an hour later, which is okay too if that's what you want. But if you're looking for, again, like a meal replacement, you're going to want to add a lot of stuff in there to give you a lot more nutrition. But I think that's totally fine. It just also depends too. Like some people might find drinking something, they might go really fast through it. So you might even find too, if you're having just like a fruit smoothie, your blood sugar, if you're drinking it real quickly and it's just straight fruit, your blood sugar is going to go like woo, and then it's going to crash because it's spiked so high because you didn't have any other you didn't have any other foods in there to kind of slow it down, like a fat or something like that, or a protein to slow down the rise of your blood sugar. So I know I kind of talked in circles a little bit there, but does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. Does it change the like how good the calories are by doing something like a smoothie, or is it basically you're just getting them in, so it's all kind of good?
Yeah, it's all the same. It's just going to be like if you chewed it up really well, I guess, kind of thing, you know. And again, it just might change, like you might drink it a little bit faster versus if you were sitting down eating everything a little bit separate.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.